to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Well, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. I am the Quiet Warrior. I'm excited to have on the show today Jennie Anderson. Jennie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tom.
It's just awesome to have you on the show this morning, Jennie. And I just wanted to say I'm up here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. You're down in Nashville. So what a great way to connect by the internet.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Jennie, you know what? This is all about you. I'm going to have a lot of fun today. I love the idea of interviewing you. So let's start with you. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I am originally from Kansas City, Kansas, and I live in Nashville. I'm a trauma nurse in an emergency department. I'm also a mom and a teacher. I teach nursing students at a local university here. And a few times a year, I take nursing students as a mentee and sort of mentor them through their final semester of school and help them decide if they want to work in emergency medicine or if there's a better place for them.
Well, that's just amazing. And, you know, Jennie, I always like to say we bring people on this show who are like you. They're accomplished. They're amazing people in society. And a lot of leaders like you don't have egos. So rather than you bragging about yourself, I just want to build you up a little bit. I've done a lot of research, including asked you for some thoughts about your background. And you know, one thing that stood out for me was the work you're doing in the emergency department. And I just want to read something to get the audience excited about how special that is. You wrote this. You said, I'm a trauma nurse in the busy emergency department. This means I have held the hand of countless men and women while they watch their spouse of 60 years pass away. And I mean, it goes on further than that. And I can't imagine that kind of work. I don't know if I could do it myself. You also have your undergraduate nursing degree. You graduate with honors, which is impressive. So you value education and you're working towards your graduate degree now. So we're really excited to learn from you. But the biggest part about the show is about the backstory behind your current success. So why don't we start there? Just take us back. I mean, I just want to throw this out to inspire you to talk from a certain point. And, you know, in your background, I read that a statement you made that I was born into a family who had no business having a child. And I went, wow, my heart grew and it stopped for a minute. And I thought, I've got to hear that story. So why don't you take us back and get us into your story?
So that statement, my mom was very young when she had me, and she was homeless during most of her pregnancy. She had used drugs. My father was and still is a drug addict. I choose not to have any kind of contact with him, though. And when I was born, children are super interested in their birth story, and they're kind of like, what happened and all of that. I had pieces of stories that several different people had told me, and I'm pretty confident that when I was born, I was a drug baby. I was addicted to drugs, and I just kind of grew up in the beginning with no family. My father had almost killed me a couple of times from neglect. My mom told me that she walked in several times and I was blue, sitting next to an open window and things like that. And one thing that I believe that I had spoken to you about before that you kind of were interested in was the tattoo that I have on my arm, which is a full sleeve tattoo. It has the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland, some things from nature, and most significantly, there is an elephant. And there is a lot of significance with this elephant just because there's a movie that I watched when I was a little girl. It was Disney's Dumbo. And that movie just played a huge role on my heart. There is a scene from Dumbo where if you think back to the movie and picture when the mouse befriended him, and the little mouse walked Dumbo out to the circus trailers where there was like a circus prison, because his mom was actually defending Dumbo earlier in the movie from a lot of bullying that took place because the other elephants were making fun of him for his ears. So Dumbo's mom threw this huge fit and ended up in circus prison. Well, this is when I was a little girl. That's what I thought it was. And the little mouse walks Dumbo out there to see his mom. And, and it's dramatic and there's melancholy music playing, and Dumbo sees the trailer and reaches his little trunk up, and Dumbo's mom reaches her trunk down, and they just kind of embrace each other in that moment. And during that time, when I was a little girl, I think I was probably about 3. I moved around a lot. So the house that we were living in, I was 3 when we lived in that house. So I just remember having tears just streaming down my face. And at that time, as a 3-year-old, I just knew that this scene of the mother and the baby elephant just kind of embracing and the mother rocking him, it really hurt my heart. And that's, as a 3-year-old, how I processed it. Looking back, I realized I was crying, and the scene, touched me so much at that age because I didn't have a mom. I didn't know what that felt like to have somebody reach down and say, I've got you. You're safe and I love you and it's okay. I didn't know what that felt like. It wasn't for, several years until very recently that I've ever felt somebody hold me and say, you're safe.
Wow. Listen, I want to just honor your story for a minute. Let's get you to sit back and take a deep breath. I mean, I came to the interview knowing a bit about your story. You're beginning with a box of Kleenex here, so I got it right on my table. And my heart is growing here. And I've got to tell you that, first of all, I love you. I love your story. And I'm going to honor you for the courage to come on a show that's an international audience, Jenny, and tell that story. Because I've been in your shoes. Your story is remarkable to me. I had written down something here. I said that it says that I am fairly confident I was born addicted to drugs. And then later there's a comment or a note I had that you said it wasn't until I was an adult before I knew why Dumbo made me cry. When I read that, I shed my own tear. And I started thinking about my own background, a bit about my story. But, we're brought into this world as innocent children. I call us golden Buddha statues. And you came into this world, and most of us have a couple million neurons in our head, and they're empty. And then they start getting filled with thoughts and emotions. And, here you are. And what you told us is at age 3, my goodness, you're in this home. And I just visualized that picture again of you blue and, by the cold window and the stuff that was going on. And, isn't it true that they say that, children who grow up in traumatic circumstances, we sometimes just think that's the way it is. Everybody's life is like that. We don't know any different. And then we realize as we grow up that something was different. I want to just acknowledge to the listeners that your tattoo is quite amazing. I want to celebrate one thing, that you're recently newly married. And one of the reasons I came across your story was through that connection. I saw a picture of that tattoo. I think they call it a sleeve tattoo on your arm, and I was mesmerized by it. I actually wrote down a funny line on my paper here preparing for the chat with you. I wrote down armed with a story. So you're armed with a story,
Yes.
And it's pretty amazing. And I want to finish with this and then turn it back to you, Jenny, to keep going. That Brene Brown is a great mentor of mine. She does a lot of work in America. She's an American psychologist in the area of shame and vulnerability. And she said in one of her talks, she said that if you have a story, you have to find the right tribe to tell your story to that's worthy of it. And when you tell your story, you get to write the next chapter your way. And I would just say that you've got such a powerful story. What I'm interested now in is that you go further, take us further. I mean, there you were in watching Dumbo and having all those experiences. There was more. I mean, I think I read you were hungry, or you said something like hungry children cry. Tell us about that part of your story. there may have also been some other difficult circumstances around males in your life. Just keep us going and build on what you've told us.
Yeah, so that state from that 3-year-old little girl who didn't know what love felt like kind of persisted throughout me growing up. And when I was about school age, my normal was being hungry. I just thought that that's how it was. I thought that, your stomach growls, it does that, you move on. And I know that there are a lot of people that will use the term hunger in a lot of different ways, like for power, for greed, for education, for money, things like that. And when I say I was hungry, I mean literally hungry. I didn't have food. And it wasn't due to a lack of food in the house. It was, I didn't have anybody who would cook for me or who would give me food. And I grew up also with my grandparents. I went kind of back and forth between the two homes. And my grandmother, I remember her being lectured by a pediatrician because I was in the first grade and very, very malnourished. And she told him that I was a picky eater and that's why she couldn't get me to eat.
Wow.
Not once did anybody ask me why I didn't want to eat, because the reasoning behind that was I had a really hard time eating a piece of chicken that may or may not have been fully cooked or not when I had just seen roaches running across the plate. Or I had a really hard time drinking water when, after crying for several hours that I was thirsty, being told to stop nagging for things, I would take a drink and I would see dried milk floating on top of the water. So it kind of went from there to me growing up a little bit more in 7th grade. When I was about the age of 12, my grandmother, who was supposed to be the person who loved me, she adopted me when I was 5 years old, and I had lived with her more consistently than anybody else. So I thought that what she did is what love looked like. And she sat me down and said, "Jenny, I'm sorry, but I just can't handle you anymore." Tom, you also have to remember this was before I could be considered a bad kid. I did not skip school. I did not smoke cigarettes. I didn't talk to boys. I didn't do any of those things. I just didn't want to go to school because nobody saw me. The adults didn't see me, and the other kids were really mean to me. So I just said, I would make up excuses to not go to school, and because of that, she could not handle me anymore. So I was told I needed to pack all of my things into a suitcase, and I needed to move in with my mother, this was the same woman that was never there. She was the same woman who was homeless while she was pregnant with me, the same woman who I could have been addicted to drugs because she made poor decisions while pregnant. She had remarried a man who was my stepdad, and now I actually have a really good relationship with him. But back then, my very first memories of him are him screaming at me because I was a little girl and I broke a glass. And he's yelling, and I can't even understand the words that he's saying because I'm such a small child, and him throwing my mom into the wall and choking her because she stood up for me. And that was the last time she had ever stood up for me. So I had to move in with them. And that cycle consisted up until I was 16 of about every 3 to 5 months, my grandmother or my mom would not be able to handle me anymore. They would not be able to let me live there. So I would have to move back and forth between the two homes until I turned 16, when I had a car and I had a job, and I said, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with this. I can take better care of myself than what you are, so I was in it. and I bounced around from friends' houses to there were several nights I stayed in my car just because I had nowhere else to stay. When I got really, really cold outside, I would go and sneak into my grandmother's house and spend the night on the couch just because it was too cold in my car. But I supported myself. I worked. I went to school a little bit, not as much as I should have. During that time, I actually dropped out of school twice. I thought about suicide a lot. I have a little sister who she means the world to me, and I was super jealous of her at the time just because she had parents and I didn't. But
Yeah.
the only thing that stopped me when, I was 14, sitting in my kitchen at my mom's house, holding a paring knife, thinking about cutting my wrists open because nobody wanted me there anyways. So the only thing that stopped me from doing that was the idea that my little sister would be coming home from school and I didn't want her to find my body because she didn't deserve to have that kind of pain.
Wow.
And that
I,
stopped me in that moment.
Wow. I mean, I'm just going to stop you there and add a few things. First of all, again, the courage to share that part of your story just blows my mind. So proud of you. And you know what? We all have people in our lives that hold a special place. And for a moment there, I realized the significance of your sister. What a gift that she is to you. And she may not know, but later in life, that she may have saved your life. As you tell your story, there's so many directions my mind is going in, Jenny. It's fascinating to me. And I'm connecting to you as well because of some of my own experiences. I have spent a lot of time in mental health as a volunteer and struggled with my own mental health due to my childhood. And what's interesting to me is that there are some children who go through what you did that actually end up not making the journey. They take themselves out, and yet you had an angel that stopped you. So that's pretty amazing. I wrote down here as well a term, gaslighting. I don't know if you've ever heard of this term. I just learned of it through the work I'm doing with other psychologists who I've been interviewing. And you said something about how you were kind of characterized by somebody that was supposed to nurture and trust you as a bad kid or somebody who's a picky eater. And the term gaslighting, I learned, means that, as we grow up, especially in our childhood and our youth, when people around us, and sometimes we call them narcissists, they tell us things over and over again and almost make us feel like there's something wrong with us. And we start believing it. And but there's one thing I wanted to focus on in your story is that you have had this incredible resilience, this incredible internal power in you. I don't know if you see it because you're pretty humble. But to be able to take all this and keep moving forward, there was something in you that seems to me that was driving you. So take us back again into the story from where you're at, but tell me about that. What kept you going forward? What did you hold on to? What was that purpose or that burning in your gut that said, you know what, besides your sister, I've got a bigger purpose here. I've got work to do still.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because through growing up until, you'd mentioned me getting married, up until I found Austin, I was basically the only person I had. And there was always something, I could never quite put words on it. But from the time I was very little, I was exposed to a lot of politics at a really young age with the Native American movement, Native American rights, and actually spent some time in D.C. doing a march across D.C. with some people when I was a lot younger. But there was always just, even at that age, something that just said, you're worth more than this. I had this feeling from the very inside of my heart that what they said wasn't true, that I was better than that, and that I was meant to do something great in life, and that involved helping people. And I think that part of the reason that I experienced some of the things that I experienced is I can use that, and I have this kind of gift for empathy. I can really kind of feel some of the things that other people feel around me. I can feel their energies and things like that. And I can use that and use my experiences to really help people. And I do that every day as a nurse,
Yeah.
and just really take all of that and move forward.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I want to tell you a quick story that's real fun for me to tell. That is my daughter now is in university, but I remember when I was younger, we used to live in a place locally, and there was a hill called Caribou Hill, and she used to toboggan down that hill when it was snowy. And we're on the West Coast here, so we have mild winters, but sometimes we get some pretty good snow in the winter. And she came down that hill so fast, she flew off her toboggan into a chain link fence and lacerated her eyebrow. And of course, my wife threw a towel on and we took her to the ER, and they had given her an injection to numb that area of her face. And then I guess because it was such a delay, they didn't start stitching it up for a while. Of course, there's dumb old dad, me, and I'm standing there, and they come and they start stitching her up, but the anesthetic had worn off, and all of a sudden she starts screaming. I mean, Jenny, I literally almost passed out. I had to leave. I felt like such a coward. And what's funny, when I watch movies on TV, I can see people having their heads blown off or all this trauma, people losing arms in car accidents. It doesn't really faze me. But if I see something like that or an accident where somebody's hurt, I mean, I just kind of cower. I can't deal with the blood and things. And that's one of the things I wanted to say to you, that I know you know this. That's why I'm so proud of your story and you sharing it. And that is, I learned this in my own experience when my dad died this January. I, for a long time, didn't understand. I hated him. I didn't appreciate him. He was an alcoholic. He was, an abusive guy to me. And it ruled me in my life because it was wired in my subconscious. Every time something in my life happened, it triggered that certain things looked like my dad, and I just behaved a certain way. And then I met with my dad and I asked to hear his story, and I heard about the pain in his life, how he grew up with an alcoholic father, and the same things that he brought into my life, he had in his. And I accepted his story. I let it go. But what I found in that is that it gave me strength, incredible strength. And this is where I want to honor you again for your story, that I believe, and there's no ego in saying this, I believe that you're one of the strongest people on the planet, because the things that happened to you and what you went through, not only did you have the resilience to overcome it, and I know this, Jenny, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, that life is a journey. Your life isn't easy. Every day you wake up and we still fight that hard drive that rules us, those memories. And we have to continue to be aware and do the self-work for life to stay moving forward. But what you went through gave you the power, and I think a gift, to go into the OR, to hold people's hands as they're dying, to save people's lives, to see the blood, and to give hope. I think that's one of the things that's amazing about what you did with your background, becoming a trauma nurse. You could have chosen any other profession. I think God put you in a place to go through things to give you this gift. The last question I want to ask you, and then we'll get into wrapping up here, is let me explain the question. The question is, if you don't know how to love or what love looks like, how do you show love? And for a long time, I didn't know what that looked like, and I found my own, what I call, love language. Now that you're married and you have this beautiful relationship, you have children, you have a husband, tell me about, what have you learned, and how do you know now how to show love to other people?
Oh yes, that's a question, Tom. Growing up, as I kind of shared little pieces with my story, I didn't know what love looked like. I didn't know what it meant to love people, and especially in a marriage I didn't really share this part too much of my story, but when I was 16, I was raped. So there are so many things when it comes to showing people that you love them. And I had to really dig deep, and I started seeing a therapist about a year ago, and that was the first time ever that I had gone through therapy, and it helped me so much learn how to move forward and not be stuck and show people love. And what I learned is how you don't show love. You don't show love by hitting people. You don't show love by ignoring people. And by learning how to not show love, I was able to learn how to show my kids that I love them. And that's in time. Something that adults had never given me growing up was their time or their energy. So that was a big one. Was with my children, I show them love by being really present with them, by putting my phone down, by listening to them, teaching them to cook with me, doing things that take time and interaction. And with my husband, learning how to show him that I love him, definitely is kind of the same thing, listening, being present. The biggest obstacle for myself was showing myself love, because you had mentioned kids, whenever they grow up in kind of that type of environment, they don't know what love to themselves looks like. They've never had anybody love them, which that was me. I had never had anybody love me. So I had to learn how to show myself love. And in that, it started off as little things like how you remind kids that you need to wash your face and brush your teeth and take care of yourself. It was teaching myself that you're not being selfish by taking 5 minutes to go walk outside and feel the sun. You're not being selfish by, going to a yoga class instead of doing something else and taking that time for you. That was, I think, the biggest obstacle, was learning how to love myself.
Well, that's amazing. That just took us in a different direction. So I'm going to extend the time here a little bit, because you've got me really passionate on that topic of self-love. And I just want to share, to connect to you and tell you that I'm at your side. I mean, after this, just know that I'll always be in your life, connected to you this way. That for a long time, I struggled with the same thing. And, because I work in the executive community, and that doesn't mean I'm better than others, but I happen to find a career as a CEO, as a senior leader. And, today I have my own practice to coach those people. But growing up, I found a lot of people who struggled in their careers, and it manifested from unresolved trauma or things in the past. And I lacked the self-love piece myself. And I'm so proud of you that you've decided to go and mentor yourself with others, therapy, if you want to call it that. I believe that leaders, top leaders as well, have to surround themselves with mentors, because you can't walk a certain path on your own if you don't know what the journey looked like. I was thinking about the gift that you give to those in the OR or in the ER, those who come into your life. They don't know, but I mean, you've got this incredible empathy, but experience to share about this concept of self-love. And I want to just finish with this about self-love, because we're going to use this as a teaching moment for the audience, that for a long time in my life, I was what you might call codependent. And I was finding relationships with other people because I was looking for them to always tell me how good I looked or how great I was. In the corporate environment, people saw me as successful, but I was always seeking for the next promotion or the next thing. What I realized is I didn't wake up in the morning and love myself. There's no blame, and the same with you. We just weren't shown that, and we grew up being not heard and sort of hiding. So I'm so excited about that journey you're on, and I know that it's going to be bringing you back to my show in the future to talk about it again. I have one more question that I want to ask you, because it took us there, and that is, if I ask you this question, or if you reflect on this question, tell me what you might say. That is, that when your work is done in this world, Jennie, what will the world look like?
Yeah, that is also another question, Tom. Let me see. I think that when everything is said and done, I would like to leave this world with people who can connect with humanity, with people who can love each other. That's probably one of my biggest passions, is helping, because I think it's because I never grew up with love, is teaching and showing and mentoring other individuals on it's okay to love you. It's okay to love you. It is okay to, be angry at people. It's okay to have emotions. Humans are not robots. We're living, breathing. We have thoughts. We have feelings. We have emotions. And just really helping educate, especially young women. I mean, men too need it, but that's just kind of where I kind of feel pulled, is helping young women realize that whoever it is that you are, whoever your heart is telling you to be, that is okay. And it's okay to love that person, because that person inside of your heart is incredible.
I'm going to go and listen to this over again just because of what you said. And the other thing I thought about was, for a young person like you, and to recount your history in life right from an early age is so unusual. To me, it's not, because I've met many people who have gone through this journey, but it's almost as if you've kept a journal, you've done a lot of self work, and so right there is the biggest gift I can say you're giving to the audience, is that to look back in time, do the self work, take the journey that you've been on, the ups and downs, and find a way to find that gold or what that purpose is. I wrote some notes down here that if I was to say, what is the purpose of your life from what you told me, I wrote down things like saving other people's lives, teaching people how to self-love, love themselves and love others, being a beacon to help others who are on the same pathway you came from. And it's just amazing to me, even with your education. I read in your background, we won't get into it, but just so others who are listening who struggled, there is hope. I mean, you dropped out twice and you had difficulty with your early education, but here you are, you went back and you graduated with honors. I mean, you are an example of what resilience is. So I want to finish here, Jenny, by honoring you. I do this on all my shows. I write it down as you're talking. It's not scripted. These are what I call leadership words that I honor you with. The first one is courage. Man, you are courage. Number 2 is light. You are a beacon. You are a light. The light is shining from you on others. Number 3, there's something about you, and I think you probably know this, you're calming the way you are, and that might just be because of your nature and be because of the work that you do with others. And the last one is resilience. I mean, it is a word in leadership circles they use for some of the most accomplished people. I'll just attach to that the word survivor, which I found in some of my research on you, this resilience to keep moving forward and do these incredible things. I know you have some children in your life. Feel free as we wrap up to mention them or anything about your family. But I got to tell you that I think your family and all those around you are blessed to have you in their life. I hope that you take this commitment of joining the Quiet Warrior Tribe. I'm going to honor you with a challenge coin that'll be sent to you, that you will carry on your life work, your purpose, to keep finding a way to use this story to change others' lives. I promise you, Jenny, that as you dig deeper, and you'll come across other walls you have to climb over, but as you dig deeper, you're going to find even more gold that's going to change other people's lives. So I want to encourage the audience to find this show on iTunes, listen to it, and give it a rating to honor Jenny's story. And Jenny, let's give it back to you for the last word as we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of those words, Tom. You have no idea what that means to me. I think probably in just a final kind of wrap up, I just would want to reach out to anybody who's listening to this. And if you're going through anything or working through something that you went through 10 years ago, there is always hope. No matter what, there is always hope. And you can always overcome anything. Nothing about your story is written in stone. Whatever it is, you can change it. You just have to take that first step. And if there's a little girl who's crying at Dumbo and can pull herself off of that couch and do the things that she's done, then you can pull yourself off of the couch. And I have all the faith in the world that you can make yourself love you.
All right. Well, listen, there you have it, everybody. What great wisdom from somebody who's walked that pathway. So if everybody continue to find that true purpose of yours like Jenny did, live with that passion, and hey, live the life that you deserve and desire.
Thank you for listening to The Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca